This is Iorì Wase Profiles. I'm your host, Abigail Jacobs, joined on this episode by Chuck Barnett, owner of Dearhouse Farms. Those who know him would say he's a character and a half. Long story short, he's so motivated, the man beat death. Thank you for joining us in Iorì Wase Studios today, Chuck. There are so many stories that I cannot wait to hear and things that I'm sure I will learn about you today.
I am excited and titillated to be here today. Thank you for having me.
Always, we like to start at the very beginning of finding out who you are by learning who's your family.
All right. My mother is Darlene Dearhouse, recently deceased. She's the daughter of Richard Dearhouse of Whirly Whip fame. Yeah, I don't know if you're old enough to remember the Whirly Whip. My father was Charlie Barnett, often called Charlie Brown, sometimes called 007 for a multitude of reasons. And I'm from Kahnawake, but I grew up in Maine, in Passamaquoddy and Penobscot territory. So I'm a little bit of a different cat than your average variety. I don't mean better, just different.
That's why we're talking to you today.
Okay, great.
And you are the owner of Dearhouse Farms. Who is the namesake that you're pulling the Dearhouse Farms from?
All right, so we first started on the Dearhouse Farm property, which is down by Indian Way School. Just as you make the bend, if you're telling people go by Richard Nolan's, where he makes the baskets, Pitt is right across the street. So we started off there. Can I give you like a 30-second backgrounder without drowning you in information?
Please,
okay.
Please.
So obviously my mother's the Dearhouse of the family, but in reference to the Dearhouse family, we were one of the last commercial farms in Kahnawake. You may know or may not know. So in 1951, it became illegal for outside grocers to buy their produce off of native farmers. Now, that had already been in place for a number of decades on the West Coast and the BC area, but as 1951, they made it across the board, and that was only repealed in about 2014.
Holy cow.
Okay, yeah, great. So I'm laying something on you that you may not have known. So so along with the Seaway, with the incursion of the Seaway, and a number of things, we ask ourselves, why are there no more farms in Kahnawake? So I was like, it was so nice. There were all these farms. You talk to really old timers, okay? Well, it was essentially illegal for us to sell our produce to non-native grocers, okay? And that was an act of legislation. That was an amendment in the Indian Act, which just hit us across the board. So my family, my great-grandfather, my grandfather's father, we were able to hang on a little longer than most of the other farms around Kahnawake that had to close because we were kept alive because of the Steinberg family. I don't know if you remember Steinberg's. It was, I think they sort of folded up operation in the late 1990s and they got purchased by Metro. But Steinberg, as I'm sure a lot of your listeners will remember, were the big grocer chain here in Quebec. Okay. And it would start off with Mr. Steinberg and his family was a multi-generational family grocer. And they probably had to have had 100. They were like, what would the equivalent of IGA or Maxi be? So the Steinberg family would secretly buy their produce off of my family. And so that's what kept us going for a little longer than everybody else because my great-grandfather, so that we had sort of it was like a Prohibition era type, pick up the fruits and vegetables by nighttime under the cover of darkness. It was real cloak and dagger stuff. And that's what allowed our farm to continue on for a little bit longer than everybody else, probably up until the mid-60s or thereabout. And then it just went fallow. After my great-grandfather died, the farm went into disuse, and that farm actually became one of the very first locations for the Kahnawake Survival School. So, So when everybody pulled their kids out of Billings and everything at the big march and everybody came out, they used our family farmhouse as one of the first locations for the survival school on this farm property.
Nice.
And that's when you had early agricultural training. There was some horse stuff, some livestock stuff, some crop stuff that was happening on my family farm. I was just a wee tyke at the time. I'm in 1979, so I was probably 7 years old at the time. And that's what was happening. So that DNA of my family in terms of our agricultural history and in terms of our role, not our role, I don't want to get a big head about me, but sort of our participation, if you'll have it, in the continuance of agricultural knowledge. I didn't want that to die out. I wanted that to, because that really is at the core of who we are at our farm. And I want to ensure that that continues. Listen, in Kahnawake, we got struck by a number of huge blows with the Seaway, with the Indian Act, with the encroachment of all of these highways and the taking of territory. And for most people, they're 2 generations removed from farming. Mm-hmm. They have gardens, okay, which is great.
And it's becoming a big boom back again. And I think that's also in big part thanks to pandemic, everybody being home. Yes. And I know, like, for myself, my generation with my father who grew up learning all of this stuff and having the big gardens and having the families who farmed. And now it's resurging.
Yes. And there's so much, it's like a great time to be in agriculture because there's all of these thirsty minds. Mm-hmm. Whereas if this was 10, 15 years ago, people would be, I just want to go into the city and make money. Yeah. Right. I just want a really nice car or a big boat so I can go up and down the Seaway with it. And now I think we're sort of
there's a change in the tide.
There's a change, and we're getting some great young people with this thirst for knowledge. But now they're a generation younger than I am. So now they're like 4 generations removed from actual boots on the ground agriculture. Yep. I get up every morning and I'm really fortunate that I had time throughout my life with my Uncle Mike, not the plumber, Dearhouse. Yeah, if you looked in the old phone books, it would say, Mike, Dearhouse, not the plumber. We never understood why the plumber actually didn't get the plumber next to his name, but they would phone, well, when does your pipe break? At 2:00 in the morning, right? And so the phone would ring at the house at 2:00 in the morning, and I would just hear my Uncle Mike, his slippers shuffling across the floor to pick up the phone, and he'd pick it up. Hello, it's not the plumber. And he'd hang up. So that sort of became appended to the family name. Yeah. Which family are you? Not the plumber. So you get it? Yeah. Anyways, long story short, I was great. I got to spend probably, 15, maybe less years with my Uncle Mike, who was part of that last agricultural generation. And he actually was a tree farmer that people don't know about because he had property on 207, but he would grow Christmas trees every year. Nice. So a lot of what I got started with him. Yes. He was really my role model. And in many ways, he was my best friend. I was just like, I'm a young teenage guy and like I'm best friends with a 67-year-old man. And it was a great time. I wouldn't trade for anything. So that started my love of trees. And, I'm not a tree hugger. So don't come to me with your alpaca knit cap, okay, and your yoga pants and think that, I'm out there hugging trees. Listen, trees are a great device. They're a great biological organism, but I don't get emotionally involved with my trees. I could tell you where they came from, where I harvested the seed from, how long they've been germinating, but I'm not that guy. Mm-hmm. I'm not the guy that's going to chain himself to a tree. No. Okay. I'm a farmer. And so when you're a farmer, you don't have a lot of room for emotional attachment. We raise a lot of animals. We raise a lot of chickens, we raise a lot of pigs. I don't give my pigs names. They get numbers. So they have their tag numbers. I know number 27, there's number 38, and I know them by numbers because once you start making that emotional attachment, mm-hmm. You start getting pulled into what's the word? It's a bit of, I don't know if the word moral hazard. Yeah. But you're not meant to get that attached to anything. No, especially not if you're going to be eating it or killing it. Yeah. Oh, yeah. And I think that's important, and it was important along my development as I transitioned from growing trees, shrubs, bushes for agricultural reforestation and restoration projects to really starting in about 2008. I'm like, I don't know if you guys remember 2008. That was the huge market crash that mm-hmm. happened. The home mortgage crash. Have you ever seen The Big Short movie? You know what happens, and I won't spoil the ending for you. But basically, we are now living in it. We're living in the results of 2008 right now. 2008 was probably about when I met you. Right. And started soaking in the knowledge and learning about who this crazy Chuck guy is. And I hate being that manic street preacher guy with the bell and the sandwich board in front of him saying the world is going to end. But I remember you talking about it. And now, as you said, we are living in it. We're here. And so now I've been able to see it. And I love seeing the transformation of where you began with, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do the tree thing. I'm going to start going for it. And now where Dearhouse Farms is
so far, and adding in all the different aspects where, yes, you have the animals and you have a partner who also farms.
I so got lucky. Listen, I'm really the luckiest guy alive. Can I say, like if you look up lucky bastard in the encyclopedia, there's literally me.
Used to be the cheap bastard.
I used to be the cheap bastard, but I'm the lucky bastard.
Yes.
Life is funny. It turned out, so I moved away for a few years following a big breakup, and then I had to get my head together, and I went and worked out in Ontario for about 3 years. That was after we did Junk Raiders, and I had this little community of people from the show who were still my friends, and we stayed in touch. And then I moved out to Ontario for maybe 3 years and did a number of different jobs out there. And that's when I said, you know what? I got to stop putting off the inevitable. And we do that a lot. We say, someday I'm going to do this. Someday when the time is right. Someday when I have enough money. And you know what? There's never going to be enough money. There's never going to be enough time. Nothing will be right. So you just have to do it. You got to jump in it with both feet. And as I was making preparations to come home, I just happened to, via Facebook, meet this really nice, interesting young woman from Ganassadage, who I had never met before. I knew some of her family. I'd crossed paths with her family over the years, but I had never met her. And she was an organic garlic farmer who grew up on a strawberry or raspberry farm, picking the crops with all of the immigrant workers. And her name is Valerie Gabriel, and she was just fantastic. And we hit it off immediately, and we just became inseparable. And at one point we said, and it was semi-conscious, and I think we even verbalized, like, what are we doing? Like, okay, you're there, you're running a farm. I'm over here, you're growing garlic and other legumes and such. I'm over here growing. Why are we not together? Why are we going to do this? Let's do this.
Nice.
So we formed, get this, she articulated this beautifully. She goes, well, because it's kind of, it's pretty lonely out here. First of all, it's lonely enough being a minority. It's lonely enough being a native. Okay. It's even lonelier being a Mohawk. Okay. Because there's so few of us, right? And it's always that thing. You got to find a partner, and you get somebody that you like, and whatever, not the same clan, whatever.
They're not your cousin.
They're not your cousin, right? There's no mental defect. And there's all of these things. And we found each other, and we said, okay, you know what we're going to do? And she articulated this beautifully. She said, because I'm from here and she's from Ganassadage. I mean, there's only 35 minutes between the communities. We think it's like an hour and a half.
Yeah.
But it's literally like driving from here to Mercier at 50 kilometers an hour.
Nice.
It's not even that far. So we said, you know what? We are going to be a community of two, you and me. And that's how we started. And we became a community too. And so we really dug deep on her farm property. We really invested a lot and took a shot at this, and it slowly started to work out, not just financially, but our days are really long. So like in the summertime, we don't really get into eat supper till 9 o'clock at night until everything is put away and done and everything. And sort of what happened, we became this weird sort of nucleus of this growing small little community of like-minded people. So we had people from her community. We'd make new friends in Zasne, and then we'd have our gang, all of our young people in Ganawage, who would start driving out there just to take part in farm stuff, like with no obligation. And so this weird little community, and I don't want to say misfits, because I don't mean to throw that, but I mean just people who had nowhere to go if they wanted to be farmers. Now they knew us, and it made it very approachable. And farming, and I don't mean this in a bad way, farming is very different from gardening. You garden, you set up your tomato plants and your pole beans and whatever, and you take a weekend in Lake George, or you go to Plattsburgh at the Howard Johnson, you come back 3 days later and everything's dead, and you can start over again, and it's no big loss.
Yeah.
But being a farmer, every season we risk everything we own to start that farm up again, with no guarantee of success, no guarantee of good weather, no guarantee that the market price is going to be good. So you literally risk everything.
You put your faith in the earth.
Absolutely. And a whole lot of hard work and a lot of broken fingers, because things happen, and you sweat it out, and and there's a lot of faith. And it's not just, faith in the clouds and whatever's up above us, but you got to believe in yourself that this is going to work because it has to work. There is no choice. I am up at 5:30 tomorrow morning because not like I'm a slave to it, but because I have faith in my love. Val has faith in her love for what we do. And we just got to believe with faith, hard work, and really focused dedication, it's going to work out in the end. And it works out. And some years are better than others. Sometimes, like your average farmer, okay, right? So your season ends probably at the back end of October, maybe when you're finally done and you're closing everything up and you're not really getting active again until March. So what do you do with those 6 months? Well, you don't see a lot of farmers in Cancun. Okay. You don't see a lot of farmers, driving their Rolls Royces around. So you got to find other means of income. It might mean you got to use that old pickup truck that you bought the plow for, that you're plowing everybody's driveway now for $20 a whack. Yeah. In order to really embrace farming, you've got to set your expectations accordingly. You say, this is a lifestyle that fits who I am. It fits my personality. It fits my sense of needing to be independent from everybody, not in a exclusionary way, but I want to live and die by my own sweat. And
I'm going to be self-sustainable. There's that, it's that ping word right now, right? But it's not just a hot key word. It is a complete lifestyle.
It's a lifestyle. I like to use the word self-sufficiency.
Nice.
I'm on my own out here. If the PTO shaft on the tractor breaks, there is no cavalry coming to save me. So I need to figure out how to fix this thing. So I like to tell people, look, there's like 110 jobs required to be a farmer, and a lot of them will never make Instagram. Yeah. It's staying up late at night doing the books. It's making payroll, not certain if you're going to make payroll. Because we've got 7 or 8 people working for us out there on the farm, and they need to get paid too. They have families and they have obligations.
And they're working hard.
And you get to know them and you love them. And these are my people. And sometimes some weeks you will deny yourself certain things. Okay, I'm only going to fill up half a tank of gas this week because I got to make payroll. And that's so our people can get what they need. Because if we make a bad decision or if we fail, we overlook something, there's no reason our staff should suffer for it. Because they're not just staff, they are extended family members. When you work closely with somebody 12 hours a day for 8-9 months out of the year, and you go through hardship and you go through failure and you go through a lot of cuss words and stomping around. They see you at your best, but they see you at your worst moment too, when you're full of that self-doubt. And why did I ever do this? I should have just took a safe job at council, or I mean, council's a safe job, but I mean, it's a job that's got a retirement package.
Yeah, I could have been at a desk, or I could have been in the dirt, and you chose to be in the dirt, and sometimes something a little dirtier. Yeah.
Oh, no. Listen, I'm not going to use the S word. My mother used to slap me if I'd say a cuss word. Even as a grown man with her bony little hands, she'd slap me up back of the head. But yeah, listen, I spend a lot of days up to my knees in fecal matter, fresh and seasoned. Sometimes you got to put your hand inside of an animal to pull something out. Yeah. There's a lot of blood. We slaughter our own pigs, but more than just slaughtering them to feed families, because we sell all our pork. Yeah. And we're really, if I can just take a little detour here.
Of course.
Okay. There's always those bumper stickers, support your local farmer. Okay. So Abby, if you buy pork off me instead of going to IGA, you know me. Okay. And you know my character, you know who I am as a person, you know my kids, you know who I am. And that I gave that pork all of my attention from the time it was a piglet. They have not been shot up with hormones. They have not been shot up with antibiotics. They have not been, like, every morning I get up and I give those pigs, for their finite lifespan, they only might be with me for 9 months, but they're going to get the best life possible. They're going to spend their days doing piggy things that pigs were made to do, rooting up plants, rolling around, digging stuff up. And that comes out in the quality of our pork, for example. Yeah. So that when you get your half a pig from us and you open up that big paper wrapper, because it's huge. Our pigs weigh about 225 pounds.
Oh my God.
So you're getting like about 150 pounds worth of pork that's going to last you for the entire year.
Wow.
So when you look at our bacon, for example, there's only a thin vein of fat on it. Okay. because these pigs have been working out in the gym every day.
Yeah.
Working their muscles, doing pig things, unlike factory-grown pigs who never get to work their pig instincts.
No, they're just shuffled in a pen and they're all together
in their own
they
feces.
eat their slop.
Yeah, they're rolling in their own feces in horrible conditions. They're shot up with hormones to keep them alive.
No, you've got happy pigs.
My pigs are the happiest guys. Like, they love it. And we feed them with the season. So when you guys throw out all your pumpkins at the end of the year and I put it on Facebook.
Oh, I love those videos.
Okay. I say, look, if you're tossing out your pumpkins, I'm going to be passing tomorrow at 9 a.m. in the big pumpkin mobile. And my little pink guys, they go to work and they eat all those pumpkins. And at the last stage, what that does is that pumpkin flavor goes into their meat.
Oh my goodness.
Right. So it's really the last 2 weeks or whatever you're heavy feeding them is going to give it a very subtle note of what they ate. So if you're in like Catalonia, Spain or something, and they're feeding them white acorns, there's going to be a little bit of an oaky flavor.
Oh my goodness.
Or if you finish them with apples at the same time, they're going to have a little apple note to them. But beyond just making animals to feed people, we're trying to grow good farmers, conscientious farmers, good people.
And what I love, and you've talked about this already, where they're all part of the community. And it's all these kinds of people who are gravitating towards your farm, and you see them from young and old.
It's just
You see
awesome.
people who volunteer and people who are working with you and learning the trade and learning the different skills and bringing it back to the community.
Please run with it.
Teachers who are off on their summers.
Yes. Oh, listen, one of our if I can drop a few names, okay? So I have my team of superstars. I mean, we started off the first year, so we had River McCumber, Russell Delaronde, Joe Rice started with us, Garden Hesta Couples. She's Daryl Couples' daughter. She's from Gunnesadage. Those were like my first year all-stars.
Yeah.
And what's great is, and they got to spend months and months with me really closely, picking up all the skills. And some of them have gone on to be teachers. And so they're now teaching the language. And we try to really be supportive of the language and get a few staff members who are really functional in the language and who joined us last year. And I love this guy as much as the day is long, is Agridadeka Martin. He's like the morale officer of when everybody's down and it's like 102 degrees out and we're all sweating, we're miserable, getting eaten by everything, we're getting hit by stinging nettle, and he is just the force that keeps everybody upbeat and going. He is like that adhesive bond in our team, and he's just like the most awesome guy to have on board. And I look forward to there being more guys like that coming and joining us. He takes, because he's off for the summer because he's in curriculum development, I think.
Yep.
So he's there, and
and not just like, I mean, you say, I want to have more guys, but you also have gals.
Oh, and when I say guys, it's inclusive. I'm so sorry.
No.
I'm like a 50-year-old guy. I got to change my vernacular.
No, but I want to make sure for the people who are tuning in that they do recognize too that you guys have a lot of women. Like, I mean, your partner who
Val runs the farm. So I'm just the guy. Not just the guy, but I'm the guy who manages the hard skills, the welding, the construction, the mechanical stuff, the plumbing, the electrical. I handle like the hard stuff, not the hard, difficult stuff, but what we call hard skills, hand skills.
So there's so much that goes into the farm. There's all these kinds of different people who come in. You can spend a day at the farm and check it out and lend in. What is a schedule like on the farm? What is the average day?
Oh, God.
Where do we start?
I guess it would
3 a.m.
I guess it would depend. I'll try to blitz through it so as not to put anybody to sleep. And I'm sure there's already people who are looking at whatever the COVID update is right now.
Never.
Okay. Well, anyways, I'll get through it in a brisk manner. Val, she's a little younger than me, so she gets about a half hour earlier than me. I tend to need a little more sleep in order to get wound up in the morning. So Val's usually up by 5:36. The donkey is braying in the backyard. We got like the roosters are down the road. And so it's this whole cacophony of animal noises going off at sunup. She's up a little earlier than I am. I'm up by 6. Probably by 6:30, we're down on the farm in our boots and in our worn out dungarees and ripped flannel shirts or whatever. And there's still dew on the grass.
How many coffees have you had so far?
I'm too deep. I don't leave the house until I have a second cup in my hand. And this is only by like 7 o'clock, 6:30, 7 o'clock. So I got to power through it. Yeah, I'm older now, so it takes a little more to wind me up. We get down there, we're already assessing, depending what the weather was like in the last 24 hours. because a farm is a living, breathing thing.
Yeah.
It's not like a library or a factory that's exactly.
No, you can't be like, specifically tomorrow, we're just going to do this. You got to roll with the punches. You got to play your field.
So I'm going down. So if I get down there at 6:30, I get out of the truck. Listen, it's really 2 doors down from where we stay, but still we drive there in the morning because I need to have the truck available to me. So I'm running my hand across the dew on the grass. First thing I'm doing is, okay, how much dew is there on the grass? Because this is going to tell us how humid it's going to be today. Old Indian trick, right?
Nice.
Yeah. So how wet is the grass in the morning? That is going to depend how humid is it going to be today. Okay. And we teach the young people all these things. Red sky at night, sailors delight. Red sky at morning, sailors take warning. Flies in June, summer here soon. All these old folksy things that are just kind of cute to say, but they have real value.
But they really do, yes.
Exactly. So I'm looking at the cloud formation. Is it circocumulus? Is it nimbostratus? Is it mackerel scales in the sky? And this is going to tell me what my next 12 hours of life are going to be like. And because you can get hit with a torrential downpour and it sets everything back, things break, things fall over. And so it's like the Matrix. It's something that's constantly destroying itself and at the same time has to be rebuilt every day on a farm.
Yeah.
On a good day. So we're down there. So our crew shows up. If it's going to be a mild day, they're there at 8:30. But if I've checked the weather schedule and I know we have a heat wave coming, they have to be there at 6 a.m.
Yeah.
There's no day is up, but that means they're out by noon.
Yeah. You have to finish up before the hottest part of the day. You're not going to kill yourselves in there.
This is the difference between gardening. Mm-hmm. Gardening is a great gateway drug into farming. It is. Get your kids hooked on gardening when they're young, and someday there might be farmers. And if I can take another sidetrack, I'm so sorry because I'm like non-linear.
This is what we do. There
was a time in our community specifically when the word farmer was what we call a pejorative. Okay, it was a very soft insult. Oh, cripe, you're such a farmer.
It's true, eh?
Right? You were uncouth, you were unrefined, or you had a rope belt on.
You left the door open.
Right.
I tell that to my son all the time. I know a farmer, close the door.
Yeah, and I'm kind of glad that that's kind of being bled out of the system. So it was always kind of not, I don't want to use the capital S, shameful, but there was a sense of that it was not a job to aspire to or a lifestyle to aspire to.
But even where being a kid in elementary school, it was like, oh, you live out on the farm.
Right. Yeah. Do you guys own shoes? Right. Do you guys pee in a bucket? I mean, it was this sense that you were more primitive or unrefined.
But even now, as an adult, I'm like, I get to move out to the farm.
Now.
And I appreciate it so much. And everybody who's like, no, you know what? We're building out on the farm.
Right. Right. Exactly. Now that we've lived village life for a while, big city village life, skyscrapers and castles and towers everywhere, we want to get away from it. We want to get away from those lowercase c conveniences. So what I sometimes tell my friends who I haven't seen from university in 20, 25 years, and like, oh, Chuck, they find me on Facebook. What are you up to? What are you doing for a living? And I'd say I'm a photosynthesis manager.
Oh, that's a cool title.
Well, photosynthesis. I'm a farmer. I'm basically a farmer. But it has a sense of a regalness to it.
Yeah, it's got a certain air.
Yeah, exactly. It's a little more respectful. So if we could raise kids saying, do you want to be a photosynthesis manager? It sounds really cool. I mean, because we're all really focused on.
Sounds like something from Google.
Yeah, right. You get to be outside all day long. You get to drive some heavy equipment, which, listen, all young boys and young girls, they love driving a tractor. And we love putting them on the tractor out there, just so long as they don't lose any digits or anything. And
try and send them home with all their digits all the time.
Oh, for sure. And you know what? I'm like that. I'm also, because I'm a grouchy. People know me. I can be funny in 1 minute and they're like, oh, that guy's such a grouch. Like he's like, how can you be funny but be a grouch at the same time? Like, how is he the same guy? He's kind of like an a-hole, right? Because he's so irritable.
It's part of what I love about you. It's just one of the parts.
I don't understand it either. I don't know who I am on some mornings. But anyways, long story short, if we could say, look, kids, not everybody is going to be sitting at a desk for the rest of their life. And we don't, and that's all right. And being a photosynthesis manager is not lower than being at a desk. It's a different lifestyle. Mm-hmm. When you sit at a desk, and we need people to operate those desks because they carry out a lot of important functions in our world. Okay. You're guaranteed a paycheck. usually the same amount every week. You're going to get 2 weeks vacation. You're going to get EI benefits. You're going to get all these things. Downside is you're going to be chained to this desk inside all day, even on beautiful days or wet days. You're not going to be outside. But on the other side, if you're a young person who wants to be a photosynthesis manager / farmer, you get to be outside on the hot days, the cold days, the beautiful days. You're going to smell everything that's in the air, the smell of decaying leaves in fall. You're going to smell the blossoms in April, May. You are going to interact with animals all day long. You're going to grow attached to certain things. Your hands are going to get dirty. And some people, that's not appealing to them. And I get it. Not everybody is the same way I am just not wired to be okay with sitting at the desk all day long and reading reports, and which I still have to do. But it's not my favorite thing to do. I get to be outside all day long. I get to form relationships with the young people that come and work with me. And these are lifelong relationships. Go ahead. I see that look on your face. Something got triggered in there.
So now, something about you that has always resonated with me.
Go for it.
Were the values that I know you were instilled with and that we've always talked about is that there's always work to be done.
There's always work to be done. Yeah.
There's always something to do. Your mind is constantly tick, 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 tick.
Yeah. I got really, so a few years ago, I was diagnosed with OCD.
Okay.
Like clinically diagnosed with.
Wow.
Yeah. So I got diagnosed with OCD, get this, and PTSD. Okay. So my mind never shuts off.
Yeah.
Because I'm in panic mode all the time. And that's part of my backstory. I guess we can touch on that, but I don't want to bore anybody with, because my story is no more spectacular than everybody else. Everybody has an interesting story if you sit down and talk with them long enough.
And this is why we're sitting down and talking with you, Chuck.
My survival mechanism that in my evolution from a young person was, I've always got to be in motion. I'm like that shark that stops swimming. And if I stop swimming, I just might drown because no air is passing over my gills. So I've always had to be in motion, and there was no such thing as free time. There's no such thing as spare time. There's no such thing as idle time. There's only time to do. And I could not naturally go to sleep at night. I would have to work myself into exhaustion before I could fall asleep. I had to use every ounce of life in me until I collapsed. And it might not be the most healthiest pursuit. And I acknowledge that I'm at that midway point in life where I can say, yeah, you know what? I really burned the candle on both ends. But I don't have any regrets. I got a lot of cool stuff done. I met a lot of interesting people. I got to be part of really neat moments in history. And at weird times, find myself at the weirdest right time, at the weirdest right place. And I've had a great, great life. I've got to do everything that I wanted to do. And now I have time to do more of the things. Now I have time to create and say, what else do I want to do? I worked in the Arctic. Okay. I've worked in Asia. I've worked over in Europe. I've gone throughout Central America. I have been a commercial fisherman out on the Atlantic in the middle of the perfect storm in 1992. If you saw that, I was out in that.
No, you weren't.
Yeah. Okay. Do you want to hear this facet?
Yeah, we do.
All right. I'm sorry. So for those of you who tuned in for a farming briefing, we're going to take a detour here for a second. And I'm sorry. I've got one of those brains that really has a hard time staying on the linear edge. So I grew up on the coast of Maine, okay? So my father was an iron worker, and he ended up building a nuclear power plant called Maine Yankee that was down there. And there's a bunch of guys from town. They're all down there. And so, the Marquis family lived in the same town. Borby Marquis and his family lived in the same town. So there was still people from town that we knew. And they ended up leaving. We stayed behind. And he built a nuclear power plant down there. But while he was down there, he was getting tired of iron working. And he said he saw these fishermen down there. They were their own bosses. They went out every day. They kept their own hours. They were sort of masters of their own destiny. And we ended up settling there, of all places, without any familial connection, nothing. We ended up on this little island on the coast. Now, we didn't live on an island. We lived on, well, you've actually been to my hometown, so you've actually seen it firsthand.
There's the LL Bean there, so.
All I got to say is LL Bean, and everybody's like, oh, I know that place. Yeah, so I knew LL Bean before it was a multi-trillion-dollar operation. It was literally this place you went and got boots. It was just this little, not even a factory, it was a workshop.
Yeah.
Where a guy sewed boots by hand, and we all had Hello Bean boots. And just because that's what everybody wore, it was local.
They got good boots.
It was good boots, and they held up, and you bring them back when they get used up. Long story short, it was a little fishing village. What it was, maybe population 3,000, 5,000. Not all, you knew everybody. It was like Ganawage.
Yeah.
It was like Ganawage, but full of white people. Okay. It was, but you still knew everybody in their background. And we were like the only family that weren't from there.
Okay.
Okay. So we were kind of like you're never going to be, you're not really from here.
Yeah.
You like, they might invite you over for
that
dinner.
happens here.
It happens here. Like, you can live there for 30 years and people go, oh, well, you don't really know because you guys aren't really from here.
Right.
So,
and then especially you're that Mohawk guy.
I know. So, right. It was the worst. Like, so American Thanksgiving, maybe Chuck would like to tell us a few things. And
oh, my God.
So you got all these Irish kids looking at me, expecting me to be able to rip a story out. Long story short, I grew up on the coast, so at about the age of 6 years old, I got put to work. This is like something out of like a Dickens novel, but times were very different back then. It's really hard for me to communicate to people who are in their 20s and 30s. Maybe people who are in their 50s and 60s might have a better look. So Maine, it still is about 20 years behind the rest of the country. It's like the Ozarks of the North.
Yeah.
It is. It's really like, so I had never been to an actual sit-down movie theater until I was probably a teenager, because we only had drive-in movie theaters at the time because there wasn't enough people to actually support a movie theater.
Yeah.
We still had those drive-in restaurants where you park and you flash the lights and they put food on a little tray in your window.
Cool.
It wasn't novelty. It was just, that's the way it was.
Yeah.
So it was kind of primitive in the 70s. I mean, it was like we were back in the 50s. It was really simple. So I went to work on a fishing boat when I was about 6 years old.
6?
Yeah.
6.
Yeah. Yeah. And I people say it and they look at me like, come on, as if. No,
I'm not saying that I don't believe it. I'm just saying, oh my God.
Okay. So if you're a family that moves to a strange place, you don't know anybody.
Yeah.
My mother worked as the bookkeeper of a shoe factory.
Wow.
Okay. I think they ended up getting bought by Nike Corporation a few years ago. And that's another story. We'll go there. So, so my father was an iron worker. And during the season, he started off being a fisherman. So we didn't have a babysitter. So I had to go on a boat every day.
Yeah.
I didn't have preschool. I didn't have babysitters. I was on a lobster boat. I was on a 38-foot lobster boat every day, which was the greatest classroom for me because I learned about marine biology every single day. I was out there 30, 40, 50 miles out in the Atlantic, no land in sight. And when you're young, your mind is really fertile, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like you're just absorbing everything. So as I got to be 6, 7, 8, I'm operating a 6-ton commercial fishing vessel.
Oh my God.
Yeah, because I'm the only one around. So if something has to go down forward, I'm operating the boat.
Yeah.
And I'm just a little kid. I could barely see over the dashboard.
You're the extra hand.
I'm the extra hand.
You know how to do this.
Yes.
You do it.
Right. And the other thing about being on the ocean, and this goes back to self-sufficiency, when you're 30, 40, 50 miles out, there is no AAA. There is no tow trucks.
Yeah.
If you break down out there, you've got to be MacGyver. You have got to be an engineer. You've got to figure out what happened and what's it going to take to get us back to port. So we'd have breakdowns out there and I would learn. And so it'd be like, boy, hold your hand on this for a second. Okay. All right. Now suck gasoline through that hose. Don't swallow it. and so I learned how to improvise with no resources but a toolbox and whatever scraps were down forward in the engine room.
Yeah.
And that really shaped who I was, that you might not have the ideal situation, but make do with what you have right now to get yourself out of this situation and get back home. I'll give you you can get in the headscape. So out of the top 10 most dangerous professions in North America, number 1 is underwater welder. Okay. Number 6 is union iron worker. Number 2 is commercial fisherman. Okay, in terms of mortality and injury rate. So by the age of 6, I was working the number 2 most dangerous profession in the world, and I didn't even know it. To me, this was normal. everybody probably did this somewhere. So I grew up in that environment on it. So I went to go work on other commercial fishing boats as I got older. And I just figured, okay, I'm going to be a fisherman someday.
You're like, I'm 9 years old. Let's go out to market.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. The tourists would come in. So now tourism was coming into the coast and people would come down and take pictures. And they said, look at that little kid driving that boat. Or I'd have to unload like 800 pounds of lobsters at the end of the day. And the tourist, I'm sure there's going to be a postcard out there with me. For sure. Right. With my bowl haircut. Right. And my stained oilskins. With me, I'm sure I'm on a photo on somebody's desk somewhere because they were always taking pictures of us, and I was just like that little Indian kid that operates the boat, and like it was kind of like funny, right? So that's the environment I grew up in. Everybody I knew was either a commercial fisherman or worked in a shoe factory.
Yeah.
And my first real job where I didn't get paid in an envelope with cash in it that actually required a social insurance number was working in a shoe factory at the age of 11. Yeah. It's the age of 11. I get out of school and I got my after school job because, we were poor. When I say poor, you've got to think in terms of like HBO movie of the week poverty. Some people live week to week. We were like day to day poverty. Yeah. It like really, it's like the Hallmark movie of the week poverty. Okay, really.
It's not just movies, it's real life.
So I had to learn how to make my own coin.
Yeah.
If I wanted to have new shoes, well, I had to go earn them. If I wanted to have a cool jacket like everybody else happened, I had to go earn that. And so it put in me a sense of tenacity, resilience, self-resourcefulness. Now remember, if you have no family around to depend on and no people that are like you, and every day you're surrounded by people who are aliens, like not aliens, but are very different from you and have a very different worldview from you. You become a little insular and you just learn, nobody's going to come rescue me. I got to do this myself. And if I don't know, I'm going to find somebody who's going to teach me how to do this myself. So what I would start off doing is I would know where there's an old man who built wooden boats, and I would get on my bicycle from school, and I lived about 3 miles. I mean, the school was about 3 miles from his boat shop, and I would pedal ass to his boat shop and offer to sweep up the floor just so I could watch him build boats all day. And he was like the last of these old time boat builders. And then if I found somebody else who knew they worked in a rope factory, Yale Cordage was just down the road, I would go there and I'd offer to sweep up and hustle and stack things and move stuff around so I could watch how they made rope. Because I had just had this innate curiosity about where does stuff come from? How does that happen? Both my parents were high school dropouts. And so they couldn't help me with my math books. They had limited knowledge of the world. And so if they couldn't answer questions for me, and I had no older brothers, no uncles around, no cousins, I had to go find out for myself. So I worked in a shoe factory at age 11. And when I figured out, and it was like dangerous. They were like these old fire trap buildings with wooden floors and post and beam constructions. And it was like a sweatshop. Yeah. So you had like middle-aged women running leather through needles, and the needles are breaking off and taking their eye out. And no, for real. Yeah. Or people running their hand through the sewing machine and the ambulance is there. And so I became that go-to kid who pushed the cart around. And that they would load 300 pounds of leather scraps on top of this. And they'd be like, Barnett, get it to the other side of the factory. And I would just be running across the floor over these humped like floorboards to get them. And they became.
Do you remember how much you made?
Oh yeah. I think after school, you're going to laugh. So I would work, I'd get out of school at like 2:00 and then I would pedal ass to the factory. Yeah. And I think I made $7 a day. Wow. Which was huge.
That's good.
Yeah. And so I made like $7 a day, which, we're talking like 1980, 81. And I mean, so I had like $35 in my pocket, well, minus taxes. I had like maybe $30 in my pocket, which was huge back then. I mean, it sounds like nothing.
Especially for an 11-year-old.
11-year-old. So I learned how to make my own money. And so I would do a lot of jobs like that. And eventually, and I'm sorry to keep doing this, but have you ever heard of this really fancy shoe company? They got acquired by Nike a few years ago called Cole Haan.
Yes.
You ever heard of them?
Yeah, I know Cole Haan.
Okay, so you're making kind of a face. So did you have a bad experience?
No.
I know a guy.
Well, no. My brother works in luxury retail.
Nice.
And his start was in Toronto in Cole Haan. So
that's wonderful.
As gifts for the family at Christmas time, we got Cole Haan
employee
shoes
discount
all the time, right?
Right. So the owner of Cole Haan was a man named George Denny. He was from the town that I grew up in. And he gave me a chance when I was probably 14 to work for him in his store. He's the guy that created the Cole Haan brand, and he became just this giant of industry. But he was from that little town, and he saw something in me for some reason. He put me work in the stock room. And I got to learn about shoes, and I got to learn about menswear and all these things, all these fancy clothes that nobody I knew could afford to own. I had never seen $80, what do you call those, underpants, those boxers?
Yeah.
So boxers for men for $80. I would be unpacking $80 underpants. Who wears the Kings? And he taught me how to sort of dress myself and how to be presentable and how to speak and how to make good eye contact and how to engage with people who you don't know familiarly. And so all of these teachers I met along the way were instrumental in my gradual development to know that there's so many cool things out there. You don't have to pick just one. You can learn them all. And
you have a whole lifetime ahead of you, especially when Chuck's starting to work at 11 years old.
Listen, I'm going to get us back on track. So at the age of 15, because I grew up in an impoverished household, there was alcoholism, there was every form of abuse you could imagine. At the age of 15, I got really frustrated and I said, I'm done.
Yeah.
I'm out. I'm going to go live how normal people live.
Okay.
So at the age of 15, I left home. And I lived in my car. And then I finally saved up enough money. I got an apartment that was about 40 miles away. I didn't even have a license. So I would drive this piece of crap Toyota Celica. Well, first it was a 1970 Chrysler Newport that was about 40 feet long. I could barely see over the dash. I was like a little kid. How the cops never pulled me over every day. I think I paid $200 for this car from an old dude who was a chauffeur who was he looked like Bernie Mac. And he's like, yeah, boy, you're going to do it like this. He was like old blues man.
Cool.
And so I bought this big ass car and it got 9 miles to the gallon. And I would then go from my apartment every morning. I'd have to be disciplined enough to get up every morning, go to high school. And I put myself through high school from the age of 15 to 18. I worked 3 jobs. I would go work in Mr. Denny's shoe store. Mm-hmm. And then when I ended there, I'd go to work in a restaurant washing dishes till 1 a.m. in the morning.
Wow.
And then on the weekends, I would have another job working with construction crews, cleaning up. So
Again, the shark. Constantly swimming.
Because if you stop swimming, poverty is going to eat you. And I survived America during the 70s and 80s. And you talk about a place, no healthcare system, no nothing. You are literally on your own. When they spit you out of school, you are on your own, kid. And you better hope that with that public school education that the government paid for you for 12 years, go out there, you can either get a job at Ben & Jerry's or whatever. But the education you get from public high school or public school system is enough for you to make a minimum wage job and nothing more. Mm-hmm. They're there to provide you with the very basics, the stripped down basics, just enough for you to live a subsistence level existence. And I decided at the age of 15, I don't want that. I'm going to have to go out there and get it myself. And I said no to nothing. Somebody offered me an opportunity. The answer was yes, I'll be there. And I'd be there a half hour early before everybody else. So they knew I was serious about being there. Chuck, there's this going on over there. Yes, I'll take it. I didn't ask how much I paid. I'm there. And so everything I just became this absorption machine of just, there was no room for sleep. And I loved learning and I loved absorbing it and I loved doing it and getting my hands into it. And so I never played sports in high school because I never had time. I was always working and I didn't really have I had some girlfriends, but I never had time for it because I was too busy conquering. I was just being better than I was yesterday, smarter, faster, more knowledgeable, more capable.
And something that I've only ever heard alluded to and I've never gotten to actually talk to you about.
Tell me.
You were hit with a life-threatening accident.
Life altering. Settle in, folks. And I'm not gonna bore everybody to death. At the age of 15, I left home. Okay. And my departed mother went to go live in a battered woman shelter. Okay. I can say that now, she's passed, but this is our story. I went off to live on my own. I didn't know where my mother lived because that battered woman shelter.
No, it's a protected place.
She couldn't give me her address. She couldn't. My mom, if you told my secret to my mom, she'd take it to the grave. If you had to do a bank job, you'd want her as the wheelman because when the cops caught you, she wouldn't tell anybody anything. She knew how to lock down. My mother would give up nobody. So my mom actually ended up living in the same city that I lived in, probably about 5 or 6 blocks from my apartment.
No.
And she told me a story 20 years later. I might get a little choked up here. She said, I wasn't allowed to, I'm so sorry. I wasn't able to tell you where they were keeping me because it was a protected place. And she said, some days I would watch you from my window, go back to your apartment, and I would see you walking down the street.
Yeah.
And I wanted so badly just to knock on the window and let you know I'm here and that I still love you and that you're my boy.
That's amazing, though.
Yeah. And I never saw her. My mom could keep a secret. And so I would just be this long-haired kid, tired from work and from school, walking back to my place from the local bodega, getting my sandwich for the night. And she saw me, and she never told me that.
She was there.
And she was there.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And this was 40 miles away from where we lived. And it went on like that. And so I lived in my car for a while. I had some really good friends whose parents were those parents who don't give a crap about anything. They'd let me park their car in their yard. I'd sleep in my car and I'd do my homework under the dome light. But I had to work out a system where I could keep the car running so I don't kill my battery.
Yes.
But I don't use up all my gas. So it was a constant balance between saving gas and saving the battery and doing my homework by the dome light in the front seat and then sleeping in the back seat at nighttime. And then when their parents would go to work in the morning to do their job, I'd have about a 20-minute window of opportunity to run inside their house, take a shower really quick, brush my teeth, put on fresh clothes, and then go to school because none of my peers knew I was homeless. None of my peers knew I was working 3 jobs. And I told, because back then it was shameful to be poor. There was a shame. It either meant you were lazy, and I was just the opposite.
Yeah, no kidding.
It meant you were lazy, you were unmotivated, you were stupid. And I also had a really bad speech impediment, which was a miracle that I would end up working in radio and television, because we know now that you have, back then, if you stuttered or stammered or had a bad speech impediment, they thought you were slow of mind.
Yeah.
They thought you were
Sometimes I find it's just that people's minds are moving too fast.
That's what was happening. That's what was happening. So I did speech therapy for about 7 years to try and overcome that. Long story short, so I powered through high school. What happened? So you asked a question, and it was a very good question. So that's how my life is. I'm working 3 jobs. I'm 15 years old. I got places to be. I'm drinking coffee. I'm smoking cigarettes. I got a job on the weekend. I got to be. And then all that came to an abrupt stop. You know, on August 26, 1987, I got into a car with a bunch of my knucklehead friends. And we went for a ride and went for a ride on a dirt road. And the driver started doing, those fishtails you do with the car.
Yes.
In those old rear wheel drive cars, you can make the back end, swivel up behind you.
Kick up some dust.
Yeah. The car, exactly. It's fun. We're having a good time. We're screaming rock and roll. And the car flipped over 3.5 times. And my head went through the windshield.
Chuck.
Yeah. My head went through the windshield because I even fought for the passenger seat. I was like, shotgun, gotcha, a-holes. I'm sitting in the front. I'm the guy. And so, the guy ended up getting crushed by a car. My head went through the windshield as the car flipped over, and the car flipped over on my head 3 times.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah. And so the car landed right side up. My head was through the windshield, but my shoulders were too big to pass through the windshield. Otherwise, I would have been ejected from the vehicle, and who knows. They dragged me out, and it was around 7:00 on a warm August evening, and I died on the road. And I remember the entire act of dying. I remember bleeding to death. I remember what it feels like when the blood leaves your body and your toes go cold, then your legs go cold, and then your fingertips go cold, and your arms and legs retract. Do you ever kill an insect and
you see them
the arms curl in? That's what happened to my own body. And my head was the last thing to die. So my head had to witness my body dying.
Shutting down.
And I didn't know I was hurt. I just knew there's something that happens. And I don't want to get all like weird and like
philosophical.
Yeah, it is what it is. But I knew something comes to you. I don't want to call it a voice. It's a knowledge comes to you and said, this is the end. And then I died. I took my last breath, and I remember it becoming hard to breathe and as it was shutting down. And then I died, and the ambulance got there a few minutes late. I was already dead. And so everybody in my little town was sitting down to dinner. Remember back in the old days, everybody had scanners on. It was a small town, and everybody heard what everybody else was doing, who got in trouble.
Yeah.
And so they announced my name over the radio, and most of the townsfolk knew me because I was that Indian kid.
You were everywhere.
I was that hardworking Indian kid that was always everywhere, and they pronounced me dead. And one woman jumped back inside the ambulance and got the paddles, and ba-boom. So when you've got thousands of volts going through your body, and so
thank you, lady.
Thank you, lady. You brought me back. And then, so they rushed me to a hospital, and they had emergency brain surgery. What had happened was the pressure had built up so intensely in my brain that my brain was now swelling, and one of my eyes was turned backwards. So you didn't actually see my pupil. My pupil was looking at my brain.
Wow.
And all you saw was white and muscle ligament across my eye. So they had brain surgery. They put me into a coma for a week. They told my mother he's going to be a vegetable. At best, he will be mentally impaired for the rest of his life, and you'll need to look at him living in an assisted living environment where his needs are cared for in some form of institution. So I went into a coma for a week, and I remember everything about that coma.
Really?
Everything, with great lucidity.
These are like life-altering and life-searching questions that people have asked in time, like in memoriam kind of thing, you know, like.
So ask the big question. Go ahead and ask it. The one that's at the tip of your tongue that you want to know from somebody who died. Yes. The answer is yes. It's not the end. You're only crossing over a threshold into another room in a giant house. You're just crossing a threshold. And for most people, death is quick, okay? They take one breath, they're gone, and they're across that threshold into the other room. For me, it was a little slower. So I got to remember everything, and then I got to spend a week in a coma. And what you need to know about a coma is it's a state of existence where there is no time, because there's no sensory stimulus.
Okay.
There's no sounds. Your body is alive, but your existence, not your brain, and this is an important fundamental thing. You, Abby, and all of us are more than just our brain, our thoughts, our dreams, our aspirations, our hopes, and more importantly, our memories. When you die, you don't bring your memories with you. There is no mourning over that which is past. So I spent a week in an infinite blackness. Imagine yourself being out in space, but no stars, no planets, no sun. So when I woke up out of the coma, suddenly and unexpectedly, there's a hose down my throat. There's machines that are draining fluid from my head. I had been reduced to a 115-pound skeletal mass. I was blind in one eye. A few of my teeth were busted out. And I was just this skeletal mass. And when I woke up, it was like this. And suddenly I'm transplanted into this place in a physical vehicle. And I don't know where I am. I don't know what I am. I don't know that I am an M. I don't, I have no memory of my former life at all. My name, people.
Yeah, you've just been a floating.
Disembodied semi-consciousness.
Yeah.
With only thoughts, but no memory to connect thoughts to. Do you follow?
Yeah.
This is going to be kind
You've just been an existence.
Boom. Yes. And so now I'm transplanted into this weird vehicle. I don't recognize a damn thing about me. And fear impulse kicks in. And I said, I'm out of here. And I pulled all the machines out of my arm, my body.
No.
3 orderlies, 2 nurses, and a doctor came in. They put the leather straps on me. They held me down. They sedated me. And when I came out of that sedative sleep, I didn't know what I looked like. Okay. So like if you had never seen your face, you wouldn't know what Abby looks like.
No.
But somebody had brought me one of those goddamn Mylar balloons with a Garfield on it or a Snoopy.
Okay.
You know, where it's like a mirror on one side?
Yeah, and it's just kind of teetering in the corner. And
That's right. So I finally saw what my face looked like. The balloon, because it has a shiny background, Garfield on the front, shiny on the back. And as the air conditioner pushed it around, I got a glimpse of this sunken in death's head in a bed. And I didn't realize that was me I was looking at until it did about a 4, 5, 6 turns around. And then I would move my head and the image responded likewise. And I said, oh no, that's me. That's what I am. I'll wrap it up because I don't want to dwell too much in dark spaces and bore everybody. From that point forward, you thought I was a machine for absorbing information. Mm-hmm. I now had to memorize who I was, where I lived, who my parents were, everybody I know, every memory I had was gone. All I had was what I tell people is the equivalent of a shoebox full of Polaroid photos. I had images of stuff, but no emotional memory to connect to any of them. They told me, these are your friends. This is their names. I had no memory of them. That was 1987, so I was now a sophomore in high school. I now had 3 years to catch up and learn everything that all my peers knew, from social cues, how to walk, how to feed myself, what algebra was, what American history was, the capital of Washington, which is Olympia, by the way. And I had to digest everything. And I just became a machine for absorbing information, but more importantly, a machine for observing. I watched how people interact with each other. I watched that there are all these subtle cues and rules that people do things a certain way, but we never talk about why we do them or why it is such a way. And that served as the template for who I became, because I was like this blank slate, to study the rules and observe how people interact with each other and why the pieces fit together. And I use that today. So when we get young people out on the farm, and these young people, and I'm saying young, they're young adults. They're adults. They come out there, and I love them. I mean, there's Russell, there's River, there's the Daibo boys, there's Gazayan. We have this great diversity. Joe Rice, who's like my right hand man. So they come out there, and they're coming from their own set of life experiences of not being Chuck Barnett. And now I have to, when they step foot on that farm, I'm going to read you real quick to find out who you are and what you're about and what do you need in your life. And I'm going to work to provide those pieces that are missing.
I got to say, I feel very self-conscious now.
No. Listen,
sitting with you and I'm like, oh my God, what is Iorì?
You've known me since you were a teen, because this has been on the whole time. And so it's not, and some people just need a little more time than others. Some people need a little more compassion. They need a little more encouragement. Some are like intellectually brilliant, but have a low confidence level that they hide their intelligence or they hide their skills, or that if you're a young person who's into agriculture, farming, forestry, whatever, there's nowhere to display that in town. We don't have a 4-H club. We don't have, so you hide that from your peers because it's uncool. I'm really into sheep, man. And there's nowhere to.
Well, what does that mean?
I got a guy like Joe, right? And so Joe Rice, this guy has an almost savant-like knowledge and biological understanding of birds, fowl, chicken, poultry, everything. He's like a chicken whisperer, where him and I have gone out in the woods and he's been able to get a partridge to jump into his hands and let him carry it around for the next hour. This is a wild animal.
Straight from the pear tree. And then to the dinner plate. And so we have guys like that who have all these skills, but unfortunately, Kahnawake doesn't have places to reward or focus those skills. If you are Kahnawake is a great place if you're a lacrosse player, if you're a hockey player, if you are, at one point, if you were into the dramatic arts, there was a place for you to go, not so much anymore. If you have certain skills that we celebrate and that we place an intrinsic value on, great. But what if you're a guy or a young lady who's really into welding?
and you don't know any female welders, or you don't know any welders you can approach.
Well, I can, we are re-upping on that because we have our iron workers, and we do have a lot of females who are going into the trade now and taking the vocation.
I love it. We produced one welder from the farm ourselves. She's in vocational school, and we love her so much. But there's a double barrier here in Kahnawake. So there's certain things, and I don't mean to speak ill of our own home. And I'm not out to make any friends or be popular, but sometimes you have to call out certain barriers that exist that
for sure.
are invisible that we...
How else do you break them?
Yeah. It's kind of like, it's like how Dave Chappelle would say, we all have that Thanksgiving dinner where there's that one molester uncle that nobody talks about, right? And it's like, who's always trying to like corner you by the bathroom, but nobody talks about it. Well, there are certain dysfunctions in Kahnawake. We celebrate certain things which are probably not very healthy. Okay. And we promote certain attitudes. We like the tough guy stuff. Okay. We like the machismo. We like I'm going to punch your face. Okay. We're going to, I'll tell you. And often we we enjoy the knucklehead. We're always like, oh, he's cool. He's got a nice car. Oh, quite, he's a old guy. Oh, he's a good golfer. And I'm not attacking golfers or anything like that. But what I'm saying is, if you're a person who doesn't fit into any of those categories, what do you do with that energy, that acumen, that sharp, bright, shining thing? There's nowhere to polish that stone. So I'm like, send me your best and brightest. I don't care. I don't care what they're into. Give them to me. And I'm going to harness whatever that love, that passion they have into a focused laser-like point so that they can be able to etch into stone. I don't care what it is.
So now we've talked about where you're rebuilding and you've gone through all that. And you're touching on how the community here works and what you're doing now. What in all of this, how did you find yourself making the chance to start a family in Kahnawake? Because you have a daughter.
I do have her. I love her.
And she is one of those
She's exceptional.
Outsiders as well.
Pink hair, tattoos, stuffed skulls and taxidermy, cabinet maker, artist, all of these things. So Christine, my ex-wife, Maya's mother and everything. Yeah. I wanted a daughter so bad because I'm like, I wanted a daughter so bad because I'm like, if I have a boy, I'm just going to screw him up and make him like me. He's going to end up with the same mental baggage like me. And at least with a daughter, I have a fighting chance. And I got the greatest kid ever, smart, dark, like a dark humor. Mm-hmm. And like by the age of 4, she had this vocabulary that was like, Baba, those clouds look very foreboding today. And I'm like, whose kid are you? Like,
you're totally my kid.
You're totally my kid. And with my daughter, Maya, I never made her conform to meet my expectations, only to be the best Maya she can be, whatever she envisions that to be. I don't care what color her hair is or how sort of outsider some of her tastes are. At the end of the day, you have to be happy with yourself and be happy with your own decisions. And you know what? Falling in with the cool, popular people, they're just as sad as everybody else. They're just as scared as everybody else. Their conformity often is a result of fear of judgment, of fear of being left out, fear of being ostracized. I say run into the burning building, okay? You can spend your whole life running from it, and it will force you to make decisions that are not constructive, that you're going to go drinking every Friday night because that's what all the cool kids do, or you're going to go live a certain lifestyle that may not be the most healthy or the most productive for your goals and ambitions, simply because that peer pressure and that need to be included, so much value had been placed on that after a while you start deferring your judgment to the group. And your decisions are no longer you. I'm sort of like that free radical guy. I don't belong in any group. I'll sit with anybody in the cafeteria. Because they all got cool stories to tell. Yeah. So go be your own person. Because you have to live with the decisions and the consequences of your decisions. And you know what? If you're really into, for example, so when she was 11 years old, we saw a dead turkey on the side of the road, wild turkey. We pulled it up. She had never seen one. We threw it in the back of the truck. I said, wait till we get home. And I showed her how to start plucking it and then said, here, it's yours from here on in. And she plucked the thing.
Yeah.
And we ate it. And she was fascinated by the talons, the feet, and then the bone structure. And I said, go to it. Discover what makes this creature operate, what makes it run, what are the biomechanical features of this thing, what makes this turkey a wild turkey. Let's look inside of its stomach. What did it eat today? And let's find out about its lifestyle. And she just took the ball and ran with it. And she was the best student. So by the age of 12, she knew how to weld. By the age of, say, 13, she was working in my wood shop. And so she had become familiar with all the vocational tools that kids her age were not using. She knew how to drive a Jeep through the bush and how to get yourself out, how to change a flat tire and plug a flat. And she just became this. And what's great is, and I mean this, my daughter is my best friend. And not just because she's like me, but because if she was somebody else's kid, she would still be my best friend because I enjoy her company and the person that she is. And that she's chosen to become this person. It didn't happen by accident. This is from a series of choices. I'm going to become me. I'm not going to become somebody else's version of me. And that's what I love the most. When I find people who are unafraid, who run into the fire, not away from the fire, I'm like, that's something special. I need you to come with me. I want you on my team.
Yep.
Because we find out, in the end, when you become 50, 60, you start looking back and you realize your regrets maybe of choices that you made that you didn't end up fulfilling what you wanted to do. I know a tough guy, one of the toughest guys I know. He's been a successful guy. I love this guy. And he told me, he said, Chuck, you know what? I love what you're doing. When I was 18, I really wanted to own a flower shop. I was really into flowers. I could name you 300 different varieties of flowers. But, you know, at the time, that's not what men did. You went to become an iron worker. You went to go hang out with the boys and stuff like that. And being into horticulture was not an accepted thing for men to do.
Yeah.
And we may have had the greatest horticulturist in this town that was wasted because of either peer pressure, the need to conform. And he's a great guy on his own. He's been very successful. But
even kids and all of us have always been told to follow the track. To stay on track.
Yes.
And to do what you're supposed to do. Figure out what you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
But don't explore, just make sure that you get to it.
And we harm them by putting limitations on them, by capping them off. And then we end up a community of people who take all their vacations in Lake George and Plattsburgh. we go to Cancun once every 3 years. We live the same existence. And for some people, that's really great. I mean, that's what
nothing bad.
So this isn't with judgment. But what if you're not a Cancun person?
Yeah.
What if you're not a Lake George person? Well, you know what?
You have tried Cancun, though.
I go to Mexico every year. Every December, because I don't celebrate Christmas. It's a big bummer. I hate the winter. So we take a break, and I'll tell you what we do. We don't go to Cancun. We go park in the jungle. We'll find a decent, because I'm old enough that I like clean and comfortable. I don't want to sleep on a rock.
Yeah.
But we go visit farms.
Nice.
And it helps me work on my Spanish. And like the Mexican people have always been so nice to us. We don't do the resort really thing.
No, you're not where you're like, I'm worried about drinking the water and getting the ice cream.
Oh, no. We're like eating tacos on the back of a truck with like a bunch of workers, or we're eating oysters that some guy next to a donkey in the jungle just sliced open because he dragged them out of the water.
Yeah.
And we're building our immune system. So we go out there and we hit the jungles, we hit the forests, and we hit the farms. And we want to learn and observe, okay, these are how they do this given their growth season. And it's not like work for us because it's what we love and we're passionate about it. And quite frankly, I'd rather be in a rented Volkswagen Bug with no air conditioning that's broken down, running through the jungles and the woods and learning and enjoying myself than sitting on a beach with some plastic drink in my hand and an umbrella and saying, oh, this must be what vacation's all about. And for some people, that's great. You work hard all year round. You have earned that.
Yes.
But there's one other thing we do here in Ganawage. We don't attribute success to people. We don't acknowledge success. We might do a blue ribbon ceremony or a picture in Iorì, wase, and there's nothing wrong with that. But we have to work on the language that we put on display for our children. If you've done something very successful, I mean, you're a successful mother, you're a successful entrepreneur. You and Brady, I love you guys. Okay, I love your family, and I watch your kids on Facebook. You guys are inspirational for me. Okay, but nothing hurts worse than when you're a young person and somebody says to you, "Okay, you're so lucky." In that moment, you have discredited all of my sacrifice, all of my hard work, all of my late nights, all of everything that I gave up to be successful or achieve something for myself at that level when you attribute it to luck.
Mm-hmm.
No, it's not luck. It's hard work. It's preparation. It's diligence. It's discipline. And we treat the word discipline as a punishment. He had to be disciplined. No. Discipline is its greatest master. Discipline, I would love to sleep until noon, but I'm disciplined. I get up and I reward myself with that discipline. And I say, I will reward myself with this thing after I've completed these tasks. And discipline is its own reward. It's not a punishment. So when we say, oh, you're so lucky, okay, or we do this, oh, quite by seeing your new car, must be nice. What is that? Do you know what that is?
That's jealousy.
That's jealousy.
I've used the term before.
Right?
I know where it came from.
We're not actually congratulating you. We're not actually acknowledging what you did. It's spiteful. Yeah. There's a sense of jealousy and there's a sense of inadequacy.
But that just comes from working and building this communal work together and recognition. Yes. And it's funny. It's what I say to my kids all the time. We need to use better words.
Yes.
Use better words with each other.
Yes.
Take care of each other.
Exactly. Nurture each other through your words. So rather than, I'm going to put on my joke on a wall, it was quite, you're stupid. If somebody comes to you and you're Bubba, okay, Eugene was one of my role models, okay, at the small engine shop. Mm-hmm. I would go and just hang out with him and have coffee. We'd talk about jazz records. I'd watch him do his thing.
Eugene Daibo Sr.
Yeah, Senior's great. I love that guy. And we just hang out there and just tell stories. And I would listen to everything he had to say. Even if he didn't realize it was wise, he was giving me a slice of history that I did not have access to, okay? And rather than say to somebody, "Crepe, you should do it like this." Oh, wait a second. And I see that a lot on Facebook. And I wrote something about the other day. There's a wild dog in my yard. You should call the peacekeepers. You should shoot them. You should poison them. No, you know what? Instead of saying you should, how about saying, I'm going to come over and help you. Mm-hmm. I'm going to get some skin in the game. It's very easy for me to sit in the chair and give you direction from my comfortable spot and say, I think I know better and you should do this. No. You armchair quarterbacks, okay? Put some skin in the game. If every time I hear somebody say, you should, I'm going to respond to you. What are you doing about it? My mother told me one of the most important lessons. Sorry, I didn't mean to point at you. That's rude, but it means I'm speaking with conviction. The most important lesson my mother imparted upon me was when she said, when you see something bad happening, okay, you have a duty and an obligation to do something about it. If you just stand there on the sidelines and point like everybody else, you're no better than the person doing the wrong. Mm-hmm. You're no better. And that weighs in me every day when I see something wrong happening and I know in my heart it's wrong or it's improper and I have the ability to do something about it. I therefore have the duty and obligation to get involved and do something about it.
And you get involved a lot with our community.
I try to be a good citizen. And
you and not just through farming and outreaching and things like this, but you sit on boards, you've worked at countless different organizations. I mean, there are the many hats and not just the hats, but the suits. You go from, I have seen you in the same day do Superman changes in your big pickup truck from dirty overalls into a fancy suit. Right. And I mean, how many different hats and things have you worn?
Oh my God. Some of the young people ask me this, like, Chuck, there's no way you did all those things. And I'm like, I never thought about it like that. So I've been an audio engineer. Yes. I actually went to school for that. I went to university for that. So a lot of the Mohawk language recordings, tutorials,
Right.
study books. So the focus of my studies was just to come out and be the best recording engineer that I could be.
Cool.
So I could produce all of these materials. And so that's what I did for about maybe between 5 and 10 years, but for 5 years, I just went hardcore and I lived and breathed it. And I said, we're running out of time. We need to record this stuff, whether it be the church choir recordings from 1939, 1940, they got to get restored. Then it's working with KOR, then it's working with this organization. And I felt a duty and obligation because I saw something happening, which was the slow death of our language. And I had the ability to do something about it. I'm not a wealthy man, but I have these I'm like Liam Neeson.
I have a certain set of skills.
I have a certain set of skills. Exactly. And so I deployed those skills for what I thought was required. Mm-hmm. And when I felt I had done enough, I said, okay, it's time to do other things now.
Yeah.
I feel like I've done something good. I've earned my right to exist on this planet for another year. And now I got to find something else to earn my right to live in this world. This is the best planet in the universe. I mean, think about it. We got oxygen, green stuff to eat.
We've got stuff that's alive on this planet.
We're close enough to the sun where we don't burn up. Yeah. So I did that. So I stepped in and I was the operations manager of K103. I was the chief technical engineer at K103 during the ice storm, which kept it going in that winter when we needed a radio station. So I'm the guy that kept the wires plugged in while everything was freezing and falling down around us. I went from there. What else have I done? I've been in television. I've been under contract.
You've been on television. When did you wear a suit? You were wearing a suit.
So I'm actually, as much as Farmer Chuck is actually the interim CEO and chairman of MIT. So I had. Yeah.
That's a very hefty title, Chuck.
Yeah,
you're just tossing it out there.
Listen. I'm probably a 16, 17 year veteran board member of Dewaduni Zakta.
Yeah,
because we need people to work with this economy and the entrepreneurs, and entrepreneurs understand entrepreneurs, and you need to be able to have those people who are the conduits to be able to make incremental change.
Yes.
And so I volunteer there. I'm a volunteer board member there. I've been the original regulatory enforcement officer at the Kahnawake Gaming Commission when we first adopted online gaming in Kahnawake, and nobody knew the rules, and we had to make up rules on the fly. And so I was the guy there. So and once we got started and going, I'm like, I'm out. Okay, I did my part. I'm done.
Yeah.
So that was a suit job. I have been a communications advisor to Continent 8 in the past as Kahnawake was growing and putting footprints in Europe, and we were building out data centers in Europe and Asia. And now that entity has about 36 data centers across the world. There, I spiked the ball. I'm done. I'm good. We're going. I'm moving on to something else.
Oh my goodness.
I don't, I've been under contract by Discovery Channel, HGTV, APTN, and probably one more network in there for about 3 years. And there's a bunch of TV shows that you'll never see that have all gotten shot and put in the can. And some of them are just stupid.
Yeah.
Like there was a show called Blow Stuff Up.
That sounds amazing. I would watch that.
There was a show in Vancouver that was shot that was actually the girl that was on the Charlie Sheen show was on there too. Anyways, I'm going long here. Called Chuck Clears Out, where basically it was a combination of Storage Wars with the American Pickers or whatever. So I did a bunch of TV shows. I did probably 3 different home renovation shows with Gordy and Jeff and Lara from the Junk Raiders. And so I've had a great run. I've got to work in the Arctic, repairing radio stations in the Arctic, whether in a community of 500 people because they need their radio station. And so I get deployed in the middle of the Arctic where it's minus 50 in the middle of January.
Yeah.
And got to do a lot of really fun, cool things. And I'm not done. And now,
I mean, death can't even take you, Chuck.
Listen, when death comes knocking, I'm not going to be at home. I'm gonna like put nobody home. I've just got too much stuff to do, and I'm not done. I love serving my community, and I'm not saying that just as icing on a cake. I love my town. Sometimes it frustrates me because sometimes we get hung up on maybe on the height of the curbs, and that's all right because there should be a diversity of opinion. If we're all thinking the same thing, somebody's not thinking.
Yeah. And if you're not feeling uncomfortable, then you're not growing.
Exactly. You should always be in a constant state of semi-discomfort. And that means constant growth. And if just when you think you know it all, you're entering into a role of self-deception because the world is too big. It's too cool. There's too many beautiful things happening out there to just be an expert in one thing. Do them all.
So now you've done everything. What are your sights for the future?
Honestly,
what are you looking forward to?
So listen, I'm gonna run the farm until I'm probably, and I'll do other things along the way. My goal is to train up young people to be so competent at this in the 110 skills it takes to run a farm that I can hand them the keys and say, you know what, you've earned it, run it, play it, and I am gonna go do something else because you are my peers now. I love you because you're like my nephews and nieces and I trust you. You're my peers. I can't teach you anymore. You are now a Jedi. Take the keys, do whatever you want with the Millennium Falcon. I'm going to go have other adventures, but I think my final destination is going to be, I want to get back to the Atlantic. I think by the time it's all done, my dream would be to go back, re-up, get my Coast Guard 6-pack license, be a salty old guy who drives tourists out to the islands twice a day.
You've already got the Popeye tattoo.
I got the Popeye, and I got the disfigured Popeye arms and the stoop in my walk, and I curse under my breath. I smoke. I'm basically Popeye. And I think that's just what I want to do. And then people will just say, I wonder whatever happened to him. I wonder where he went. One day he was here, and the next he was gone. And maybe
somewhere.
Yeah. And
beyond the sea.
Yeah, I don't want to die. I don't want people to ever think I'm dead. He just left one day, and maybe he's still out there somewhere. And maybe some of you, like in the Shawshank Redemption, you'll get a postcard in the mail, and the return address will be some hardware store in some small coastal town, and there'll be a guy there. Go to that little hardware store, and tell him you're looking for me, and he'll tell you where to find me. And then you'll find me. And
I can't wait to get my postcard.
Yeah, well, we got time. We got miles left in the road. But I think that's how the end of my story will play out someday. I like to think that anyways.
Thank you so much for being with us, Chuck.
No, thank you. I love seeing you guys again. And thanks for listening, guys. It's been a good ride.
I'm your host, Abigail Jacobs, and that's another episode of Iorì Wase Profiles. Iorì Wase would like to thank the Community Media Strategic Support Fund for supporting this initiative.